We're finally finding an inner sense of peace, calm, and flow, especially around some things from the past we've been trying to let go of for quite some time so that we can step into something that's new, different, and ultimately going to be much better for us. And that inner peace of calm and flow is then helping us in a very significant way to either connect with other people in relationships who can help us make this transition much more easily than it would be otherwise, or if not connect with other people, this sense of ease and flow is just helping us make this transition ourselves in a way that also feels more easy and also starts to speed up and pick the pace to help us finally transition out of some old things in our life that we haven't liked once and for all and move into new, different, and better things. Hi, I'm your astrologer, Brittany, of Ethereal Astrology, helping you to see the larger story of your life. Today, you're watching your astrology horoscope for the collective for the full moon in the sign of Libra, which occurs on Wednesday, April 1st, 2026 at 10:11 p.m. Eastern Time or 7:11 p.m. Pacific Time, of course, depending upon which part of the United States or really the world that it is that you live in. Now, in order to get started, what I like to do first is to place on the chart what it is that I'm going to be referring to in this video so that you can see it and follow along with me. So let me do that now. This video is for that full moon in Libra on Wednesday, April 1st, 2026. Because of that, I have adjusted the chart accordingly for that lunar event. I know that because I've got the moon here in Libra at 12 degrees, making an exact opposition over here to the sun, and the opposite sign of Aries also at 12 degrees. Okay, and when the moon opposes the sun, that is considered a full moon, and it's in Libra because that's where the moon is in particular. Okay, now what exactly is this all about? Now, I like to give you more of a general sense of the major themes that are going to be coming up. Well, full moons really mark the halfway cycle of the lunar month. And because of that, what they tend to indicate is us stepping into something more fully, full moon, that we've really been working towards for quite some time. You can consider it since that last new moon 2 weeks ago, but you can also consider it as well since the last new moon in that sign, in the sign of Libra, which was 6 months ago. And not only is it about stepping more fully into something, but it's also important to note that that is when the moon is the brightest in the sky as well, which means it can also bring something to light. It can illuminate something and help us see something that we did not see before that can help us complete this thing, right? Bring it to fullness. Not only that, but it is a function of an opposition. Here, oppositions usually indicate choices that need to be made because it's hard to do two opposite things at once. So full moons usually do bring or force some sort of decision to the surface that needs to be made. Not only that, but because once this happens, this full moon happens, we then get to the second half of the lunar cycle or the lunar month. And the second half is more kind of about endings as well, ending something. So what that means is that not only are full moons about us stepping into something more fully that we've been trying to work towards for quite some time and getting illuminations about how to do that and making some decisions, but it's also too about once we do that, kind of ending that or letting that go so we can focus on something else, especially that's going to come up at that next new moon 2 weeks after this. Okay, now what is it that we are stepping into and getting insights around, making decisions about, and ultimately going to start to end or wind down? Well, that's Libra, of course, because that is the sign that the full moon is in. What is Libra about? Well, Libra is a Venus-ruled sign. Venus tends to be more calm, more about peace, more about ease, especially when we're talking about Libra here. So I think one thing that we're trying to more fully step into that maybe we've been working towards for a while and get insights on and see, right, and make decisions about is just approaching life in a way that is more calm or that is more at ease, right, without some of the stressing and the pushing and the forcing to kind of contrast it with something else, because sometimes that can help. Not only that, but I also need to note too that Libra, as we typically think of it, as a sign of balance being symbolized by the scales, right? And balance also kind of correlates to this idea of being calm. We're not forcing things, or we're not all over the place. there's also more of that too. So that's another thing. We're trying to step more fully into a more calm and easier approach to life where we feel more balanced, especially emotionally balanced, with the moon being there about our emotions too. And we're trying to get insights on how we can do that and make decisions about, right? So we can ultimately kind of let that go once we get there, but we have to kind of more fully do that first. Not only that, but I think another thing that I want to note as well is that because Venus correlates to Libra, right? Libra also tends to be a sign that is a little bit more slow, I might say. That likes to, especially with it being an air sign, take the time to really think things through and deliberate as well, or maybe even talk about some of this stuff as well. So not only are we stepping more fully into a more calm approach to kind of life and our situation and whatever's going on, that's more at ease, that's more balanced, but I think we're also trying to step more fully into something that's a little bit of a slow moment so that we can more fully think things through and talk things through, and get ideas that might be needed as well. That's coming up. Not only that, but another thought too is that Libra, of course, is about relationships, being a Venus rule sign too. That's another way we typically think of it. So this full moon can also be about us trying to step more fully into relationships and into partnerships that can really help us, feel more at ease, right? Feel more calm, feel more balanced, and accomplish some of the things that are important to us in this more easy way. Not only that, but it's not just about any type of relationship. Usually Libra too is also about relationships that are more fair, right? Where there's more of an equal exchange, more diplomatic as well. So we're trying, I think, to not only seek out relationships, maybe that can help us with some of this stuff, but also trying to figure out how we can be more fair and more balanced in relationships to make it mutually beneficial as we work some of this stuff out. Not only that, but the last thing I think that I want to mention that's really coming to me, I actually think this one is super important. So I might lean more heavily on this thought than some of the others, although I'm going to try to weave some of those in too. Libra is also the sign of the harvest, right? Libra is a cardinal sign. All the cardinal signs start seasons. Which is based, I do tropical astrology, and tropical astrology is based on the solstices and the equinoxes, which determine the seasons. And in the Northern Hemisphere, which is what tropical astrology is based on, the first day of Libra season is the first day of fall. And fall is really correlates to the harvest, right? And what happens during harvest season is that all the work that we had put in, right? If we're thinking from an agricultural perspective, which is how a lot of these things play into the seasons, what happens in fall is that a lot of the work that we put in earlier in the year, planting seeds, tending to the crops and the seeds that we planted to make sure they grow, harvest season is when we start to see the results of all that effort, is when we start to see, how did we do? Did the plants grow? Did they not? And if they did grow, to reap some of the rewards from that, to eventually distribute as well. So I think that's another thing that I think is coming up here at this full moon in Libra, is we're stepping more fully, right? Full moon stepping more fully into, you could say, an awareness or a realization of all our efforts from the past and whatever we've been doing, and of what's working and what's not, to get us where we need to go, or to start paying off to really help us move forward in the way that it is that we might need, right? That we might have to make decisions about there too. That's going on as well. So I think that's another thought that I want to note maybe now. And I think that's the last one that's coming up for me. So maybe for now, to bring all of that together, what's going on at this full moon in the sign of Libra is that we're trying to step more fully into a more calm and balanced and kind of easy approach to life and to whatever is going on that's kind of slower and more harmonious. And we're trying to maybe seek out relationships and be, of course, fair and diplomatic with relationships who can help us accomplish the things that we need in this more calm and harmonious and easy way that's, mutually beneficial, so that we can more fully, I think, right, finish some long efforts we've been working on for quite some time and kind of see the results, right? See the results of our past efforts start to come to fruition, start to come to harvest, start to add up to something, very significant that can really help us. Okay. And we're trying to get right the insights and make the decisions about those things. Okay, because that's it, I'm now going to erase that. Now, I will say this. What I normally do, for those of you who've been following me for a long time at this point in the video, is that I go way back in time to give you the context of this full moon in Libra. And to do that, I actually go way back to a time in 2020 and then kind of connect things from there. But I'm not going to do that in this video. I'm not going to do that in this video for a few reasons. One of the reasons is because I'm just not feeling it. I'm just not feeling it. I'm just not feeling, the greatest. And to be honest, the fact that this section is getting so long, it just makes me dread doing these videos. So I'm not going to do it for now. Not only that, but I think that, my videos being so long, it like really kills my views when it comes to this. And YouTube is funny and trying to do what you want to do and what makes you happy versus what other people like. It's an ongoing negotiation between those that can be very hard. And, I'm just going to give it a break. So I'm not, and a lot of things are changing in the astrology anyways. So I'm going to give it a break, at least for this video, and then see how it goes. And just try to get more straight into it. So I'm not going to go back to 2020. What I'm going to do now is instead I'm going to go into the actual horoscope. But I am going to bring in one outer alignment to give you the context. And I've been considering doing that. I've been considering, I don't know if I'm not really making any firm decisions yet, but I've been considering getting rid of that context section and instead just making it very brief and adding it into here. But that's where we are. I don't know if that made any sense, but I'm just not going to do it today, and we're going to do something different. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to hop now into this full moon in Libra, and I'm going to back into it. Sometimes I like to do that by talking about some other alignments. And I think the first one I'm going to start with is going to be Saturn conjunct Neptune in the sign of Aries. It did come exact, a month or two ago now, but they're still kind of hanging around close to each other. So I'm going to start there. This is a very rare and important alignment, rare because it only happens about every 36 years that Saturn and Neptune come conjunct, and not always in the sign of Aries, which makes it even more rare. I think it was like over 100 years ago that this happened in the sign of Aries. And when something's rare, it becomes more significant, because it's not a thing that really occurs that often. So we're going to start there. And because this is a rare alignment that obviously is significant, it's going to really color everything else in the chart and what's happening. So I'm going to talk about that. Neptune is here. Neptune can be a lot about our dreams, our ideas, maybe an emotional feeling or a spiritual insight that we might be getting. And it's in Aries. Aries is the first sign of the zodiac about new beginnings, since it starts the whole zodiac, and about doing things in different ways. So this can bring some kind of idea or spiritual prompting or emotional feeling that we've had, and we might have had for a while, because Neptune was in and out of Aries here for a bit last year, to do things differently in our life, to start new experiences, to behave differently, to have a very different kind of chapter of life. And with Saturn there, Saturn really brings structure, it brings form, it brings commitment, it brings dedication. And with Neptune, to make these ideas and these dreams a reality, so that we're not just dreaming about one day life changing and being different and being better, and maybe one day it'll happen, but so that it can actually start to happen now. We can make these ideas a reality now with them conjunct with the determination and the commitment in order to really do so. That's been happening. And to also, I need to note, to release things from the past that have been holding us back, because Neptune is also, since it correlates to Pisces, the last sign of the zodiac, about the past and about letting things go so that new things can begin here. And so I think that that's where I want to start. There's a big rare energy going on at this time in the astrology that doesn't happen that often, that is making us want to commit to making some dreams or ideas about a new life, new experiences, doing things in a different way, a reality, to actually create that experience with the determination or the discipline that it needs, and release anything from the past that's in the way of that new life that's holding us back. Okay. The next thing that I want to mention too is that when it comes to this, here's the full moon in Libra, right? And making that opposition to the sun in Aries too, is that this full moon in Libra is somewhat near Saturn. I mean, it's not terribly close, but it is somewhat close to it. What is that? Like 8 degrees, seven degrees The moon is in opposition and the sun's in a conjunction with it. And the sun was definitely in a conjunction with Saturn a few days before this full moon happened as well, which I think it also plays a part in it too. What could that be, right? The moon opposite Saturn, sun conjunct Saturn. Well, Saturn can also bring a really like heavy feeling to things because it is technically considered a malefic planet by the ancient astrologers. And it does have to do with discipline. It does have to do with, responsibility, with effort, with reality. And when you get it, especially close to a personal planet like the sun, it can bring this really heavy feeling and this weight, especially with the Saturn Neptune being so rare, such a rare alignment of like this heavy feeling of like something very big trying to happen that maybe feels like it's taking a lot of work or feels like it's taking a lot of effort or that feels overwhelming or maybe feels stifling or scary in some sort of way, that this can also bring. Not only that, but Saturn can also bring too a little bit of a slow energy as well, similar to that full moon in Libra, because Saturn is somewhat of a slower moving planet, right? It doesn't move as fast as the as the personal planets do. Okay. It's somewhat of a slower moving planet since it does take about 29 to 30 years to circle the entire zodiac. So this can also indicate a little bit of somewhat of a slower feeling or a stuck feeling, just feeling like it's just heavy. It's just to make this transition out of one thing and into another, then a way we haven't in a very long time. It just feels heavy. It feels like a lot and very serious and slow and all of that. This can also too, sometimes Saturn, because it brings that heavy weight, can bring a little bit of like a sad feeling or a depressed feeling or a down feeling as well. That's going on. Not only that, but I think another thing that I should note as well is that Saturn is in Aries here, and Saturn does not like to be in the sign of Aries either. That can make it also a little bit harder to handle. Why does Saturn not like to be in the sign of Aries? Well, Saturn is a lot about tradition, which a lot of times correlates to this seriousness and this responsibility and this structure. And Aries is not about that. Aries is about our instincts and is about our impulses and it's about new beginnings, right? Being the first sign of the zodiac. And when you're beginning something new that you've never done before, you can't rely on tradition. You can't rely on what you've done in the past because that's for something else you've already done. It's not for something new you've never done before. And it's harder to be more serious and more structured as well when you don't know what you're doing and you're just trying something new and you're just throwing things against the wall. So I think that's also been a problem too. And in what way? Well, I think because Saturn does not like to be in Aries, and this is a weird spot, I think it's been making us feel a little bit more like we need to do things in a more traditional way than we don't, or in a more strict and rigid and serious way than we really don't need to as well, right? Because we're trying to enter something new, and because we've never done it before, we kind of just need to be following our impulses and more happy-go-lucky and just trying stuff. But with the Saturn there, we're feeling like torn. And like maybe we need to be more serious and responsible about the effort that I think is also causing the slowness and also causing some of these problems that maybe we're having, feeling like we're making progress. That is going on. Because we're not following our impulses and kind of allowing those to happen in the way that we need. So I think that's what I want to say there before I go over to the full moon here, is that we're in a very rare experience right now where we're trying to end old experiences of life and leave those behind that are no longer working for us and create something new and different and better for us and make our ideas of that a reality and put the determination and effort into it. However, because this is so new and we don't know what we're doing and it's a weird experience, we think that in order to make this new thing work here, that we need to be serious and we need to be traditional and structured and a little more rigid about it. And when we don't, we kind of just need to go with the flow and see how things are. That's making us feel a little stuck and restricted still, and bringing a little bit of a slow energy, like we're not really maybe moving in the direction that we need. Right, that's then going to lead me here to this full moon in Libra, of which, of course, this video is for and the chart is set for. The full moon is about stepping into something more fully. Remember, Libra is a slower sign, being Venus ruled, right? And we did just have the sun conjunct Saturn in the few days before this full moon. These are slow indicators of things maybe feeling a little bit more slow when it comes to things. There's definitely like a slower energy when it comes to releasing old things and moving into new things that we might be more fully feeling. But not only that, other things that I want to note too is that even though Libra can also be a slower sign, with it being Venus ruled, remember, it's also about calm, peace, ease, balance as well. So I think not only is this full moon in Libra bringing, sure, there is a slow, frustrating, stuck feeling, but it's bringing a sense of like, let's lean into it. Let's lean into that slow feeling. And instead of seeing it as a bad thing of like, oh, it's frustrating and it's holding me back and I'm never going to get anywhere. Let's lean more into the slower feeling and go with it instead of fight against it, and find an inner sense of peace and calm and balance like within this slower energy, and to use it for that, to use the slower energy, not to make us anxious and nervous, but to make us feel more at balance and at peace with ourselves, which again, I think we're also trying to more fully step into. Not only that, but remember, with Libra being an air sign, this is also too maybe about us taking this slower time and this slower opportunity to really think things through, of like, and the stuck energy of like, what is going on, what's not, to try to get multiple perspectives that we can weigh out, or different perspectives. Libra too is also a sign of relationships. So it's also us maybe trying to connect with relationships or with other people to get their thoughts on the matter of what's going on, or to maybe get their help if we're feeling like something is hard or slow too, and to get insights and make decisions about some of that here that I think is going on, that I think is turning, like, I hope this is clear, a really slow, stuck energy into something that we are appreciating more, and allowing really more to happen, and using as an opportunity to think things through and connect with people and see things in a very different way. That's happening. Not only that, but I want to get to that thought about the harvest as well, and bring that into here with Libra being the sign of the harvest. And again, remember, harvest is about the results of our past efforts kind of finally yielding rewards, so to speak. The fruit of our labors becoming more ripe. And so not only do I think that there's been a lot of these other things we've talked about, a little bit of a slower energy that we're leaning more into, more calm, more balanced, and using as time to like think and connect with relationships here. But it's also this slow energy and thinking and connecting things is also helping us realize something, come to light at a full moon, realize that how to get things moving much better, realize how to get things from the past that weren't ripe, how to get them that haven't been harvested, right? It's helping us figure out how to finally do that, and how to finally make that happen. Not only that, but remember as well, I did say that full moons can also be about ending things, right? You have to step into it fully first, okay? That's key. But once you step into it fully and you've done it, right, and you've accomplished and achieved it, you can let it go. So not only is the Libra about we have to step more fully into the slow energy, the calm energy, thinking things through, talking things through with relationships, considering our ideas and options, and that helping us, right, to figure out how to make the harvest happen, right, how to reap the rewards from all our past efforts. But if Libra is about being slow, and if it is about kind of that calm energy, once we do it, it can also be about ending that, right? Ending a time of slowness, right? We step into the slowness to figure a lot of this stuff out. And then once we've stepped into kind of this slow energy to kind of figure out what's going on here and what's doing this and what's happening, then we don't need to be slow anymore, right? Then the slowness fades away or wears off. and maybe some of the calm and balance too, and we're going to get into that, is going to wear off as well, because the full moon can kind of close that out to help things move much more quickly and easily, especially too with another alignment that's going on, because this full moon in Libra is also making a bit of a trine over here to Pluto and Aquarius. And now again, I know that this is what kind of far 7 degrees, but I'm going to include it here. Because it's still around, and because I think there are some other alignments that are going to also say similar things. So we're going to talk about this as well. What is this? Well, trines to me actually do indicate things happening quickly and easily than they would otherwise, because trines occur between two planets that are in signs of the same element. And in this case, Libra and Aquarius, they're both air signs. And when you get something in common like this, it's easier, right? It's easier to talk to someone you have something in common with. When you have something in common with someone, it's easier to do things, you just get things, right? And so that's kind of what happens here with the trine. The Aquarius and Libra have something in common, so they're going to do things faster and easier, an indicator too of something speeding up. Not only that, but Pluto is a lot about change and transformation, or things changing and shifting, which usually indicates out of an old thing and into a new thing as well. Especially in Aquarius, about our future, right? To help us move into the future that's needed. So once we get insight, calm, ease, relationships, something happening very quickly, very fast, big change. And I think positive, right? Trines to me, I tend to interpret positively more often than not. Especially if the planets involved are good. And if the moon's in a trine with Pluto, it means the sun's in a sextile with it, also a good alignment. So I'm going to interpret this in a good way. Things speeding up to get us out of one thing and into another thing here. Not only that, but Aquarius is a lot about the sudden and the unexpected. So it can indicate this happening very suddenly and unexpectedly, things speeding up, things clicking into place, things changing here. I think in a way that you need to get out of one thing and into another, and see all your efforts from the past to do that, at least the past year, but I think many years, finally start to pay off. Not only that, but I should note too, Aquarius is also relational in some way. The air signs can be kind of like that, right? Because it's hard to talk to yourself. And Aquarius can have to do with like groups of people kind of organizing as well. So this can also indicate too, not only like changes speeding up in your life, happening more quickly and more easily out of one thing into another to propel you into the future suddenly and unexpectedly, but people banding together. Because remember, this full moon is in Libra. There's something about connecting with relationships banding together, you connecting with other people in your life who can help you do things that you need to get out of one thing and into another thing, and to really start to work together in positive ways to help. Not only that, but Aquarius is a little bit more of a public sign, right? This part of the chart is more the public part of the chart, since it's at the top of the chart, where of course Aquarius is near. And the top of the chart, the public part of the chart, is where things are more publicly seen. So not only can this indicate changes happening very quickly, very easily, out of one thing into another to propel you into your future suddenly and unexpectedly, with relationships rallying around you, people and things here to help you out, but it can also indicate that becoming more seen, these changes becoming more seen, because I think that we've been trying to make a lot of changes over the course of the past few years. But I think that they've been a lot of internal changes, so to speak, a lot of internal shifts, rearranging our inner world. And I think that's super important, right? We have to change who we are inside before we can change who we are outside. Okay. But even though that's super important, I don't think we've seen as much outside happening externally to match what's going on internally. And this is going to change that. This is going to make us start to see externally in our lives, things shifting in a more tangible sense to kind of be different, and I think we're moving in a better direction to be different and better, to start aligning in a new way. Okay, so are you seeing how it's all coming together here? To repeat that before I add a few other things, right? It's like We're trying to transition out of old things into new things in a very rare experience and to make our ideas about a new life a reality. But it's felt a little hard to do, I think, for a long time, but especially the past few days and weeks, like it's requiring a lot of effort that's been making us feel like we need to be too traditional, too strict, too disciplined than we really need to be, because that's what we're used to doing, is being kind of traditional, strict, and disciplined. That's been hard. And at this full moon in Libra, instead of us seeing this slow energy as a bad thing and this restriction is a bad thing, we're leaning more into that slow energy. And that slow energy is then helping us to be more calm and is helping us to find more of our balance and to think more things through and to talk more things through with relationships about what's going on and what we need and what we're trying to change in our lives and how we're trying to change it and how they can help us. And that is then giving us a lot of powerful, I think, insights that then is finally working to help us actually change our lives, to end old things from the past and step into new things, and to finally do it faster, to speed up the pace, to make it happen faster and easier, and to feel like you're not alone with people rallying around you in unexpected positive ways that you need to get in some different direction here that can be more publicly seen in a way that we haven't seen it in a very, very long time, that will manifest, I think, physically and tangibly in our lives for the better, right? To set us up into this new experience. Okay, that then leads me to another thing I want to mention. I'm going to stick with the full moon for a minute, although I want to mention some other stuff. This full moon is also making a square over here to Jupiter in Cancer, which is clearly the more exact aspect between the moon and the sun, right? Because we've got here the sun at 12 degrees, right? The moon at 12 degrees as well. And we've got Jupiter here at 15. Now, I'm going to give you both the good and the bad about this. There are some good things that I like about this, because this is Jupiter in Cancer. It's sign of exaltation, where it really likes to be. And Jupiter is the planet of gifts and good luck. So there are some good things about it. However, I might give you some challenging things as well, because this is still a square. There's squares, at the end of the day, even though I do tend to be more positive on Jupiter on the whole. But I'm going to give you the positive first. Jupiter is about wisdom. It's about understanding. It's about good luck. It's also about optimism. It's a glass half full kind of planet. And it's in Cancer. Cancer is a lot about our emotions. So very good, optimistic emotions. It's also too about our foundations in life and feeling more grounded. So starting to get an understanding, right? A wisdom that something in our life is becoming more grounded, more solid, with more roots, right, from which to grow after this point. Maybe this is also good luck, gifts and good luck, kind of helping us on our journey, serendipity, right? Things to kind of give us a good boost to kind of help us along, falling into place. That can be very, very nice as well. This can also bring more of just inner insight, like just more of an inner knowing as well, because Jupiter again is about that wisdom, more of an inner knowing of what needs to be done and how it needs to be done to make this transition, to get into a new experience, to make things actually work and grounded and real. So it can bring some of that, especially because Cancer can be very, very intuitive. So can bring a bit of an inner knowing there. It can also bring a little bit of like a big picture view, because Jupiter to me is very big picture. And then we've also got Aquarius too. So it can be like maybe you're starting to see like the pieces align, like a lot of pieces start to come together in the big picture to kind of get to where you want to go. That I think can also be nice, like a lot of luck, a lot of support, a lot of optimism. Okay, but even though that's the case, how can Jupiter go wrong? Well, Jupiter, sometimes when it goes wrong, it can go to excesses and ironically can go to imbalances as well, right? Like the full moon in Libra is a lot about balance, right? That's what we typically consider Libra, but here Jupiter, because it's such a big planet, right, can lead to imbalances and excesses as well. That's happening. So it can also bring some of that. What kind of imbalance or excess? Well, it is in Cancer. Cancer is about our emotions. And I think this can create us being emotionally like out of sorts, so to speak. But again, I think it's in like the best way possible. I think it's in a good way. I mean, Jupiter again tends to be a planet of gifts and good luck. I like this trine to Pluto and Aquarius. I think it's because of a good reason, right? Things are starting to move. Things are starting to move in our life fastly and quickly and easily to finally do some things we've been trying to do for a long time to get out of one thing and into another. And we're seeing it and it's all clicking into place. And we've got people helping us and we've got good luck and we've got support in order to do it, that's going on. And this can create a lot of crazy emotions. I'm like, oh my gosh, what is happening? I can't believe it. And it's right. And unexpected things are happening too. It's like, this came out of nowhere and then this is happening and what's going on there? It can create a lot of these very intense or extreme emotions, which I think are good ones, but could feel a little chaotic or a little crazy. Not only that, but if Jupiter is bringing like good luck, so to speak, or bringing good things to help you out, Jupiter can expand that and can bring a lot of good things or just a lot of things going on, or the things that are going on feeling big, right? Maybe there's not a lot going on. It just feels big. And it can also bring that too, where we just feel like there's a lot going on in our situation that we got to do, we got to get to, or just things that feel very big that can also feel very overwhelming as well. Too, that maybe I need to note, because again, Jupiter is very big picture, that can kind of make it hard, that can make it feel like it's hard to keep up with things on the day to day, because there's so much going on and because we're feeling so much and we're very excited about it, maybe feeling like some of this stuff that's happening is kind of running over us a little bit because it's so big or different or happening so quickly. That can be a bit of a challenge. Okay. So do you see there? And I kind of interpret it, the way I see the energy, because the planets are in motion, is that there's a way the full moon manifests coming into it. And then there's a way it manifests near the full moon and then a way coming out of it. Right. And so do you see coming into this full moon in Libra, there's a stuck energy. It's like we're trying to get out of an old thing that we don't like anymore from the past and into a new thing. But for some reason, it's still not jiving quite in the way that we might like. It's still not moving. It still feels heavy and a little slow and a little stuck, and our mind's not in the right place. We're being too harsh and too strict and all of that. And then finally we stop fighting against that slow energy. We lean into it. We try to be calm. We get different perspectives. We talk to relationships, and man, that fixes it. That fixes the issue, and that speeds things up. Things then, as a result of that, give us clarity, give us insight, speed things up, to finally realize and get the understanding of what changes we need to make and how, with the support of people who can help us do it. And when you have support, it makes it easier too. Okay. Unexpectedly coming, bringing lots of good luck to finally make this transition out of one thing into another, and to finally see a lot of these pieces finally start to click into place and to really begin to come together. Okay. That then leads me now to the next alignment that I want to mention. I'm going to go here. I'm going to go as well to Mercury. Now I'm going to go to other ones outside of the full moon. Okay, we've got Mercury in Pisces also making a trine to said Jupiter that we were just talking about here. Right, now, I also tend to like this on the whole, because again, I tend to like trines more often than not. I also tend to like Jupiter more often than not, especially when it's in Cancer, it's a sign of exaltation. So I'm more positive on this, although I'll also give you a negative as well, because Mercury's in Pisces, a sign it doesn't like to be in, and sometimes struggles with Jupiter. What is this? Well, I'm going to start with the positive, right? Mercury is about our thoughts, our habits, our routines, our communication. It's in Pisces, the last sign of the zodiac, about the past, and really ending that and leaving that behind, so that we can start all over again when more planets get into Aries, the first sign of the zodiac. And it's making a trine to Jupiter in Cancer. Jupiter is also about gifts and good luck. Cancer is about feeling more grounded, especially in a different experience that's being created. And again, this is a trine. Trines also indicate things happening more quickly and more easily, So this is another indicator of like our mindset shifting to see a new experience, to understand new things and how to make that come in our physical life, shifting our habits, our daily routines and things in our environment, shifting out of an old thing into a new thing. It's another indicator that it's happening, and it's happening more quickly and easily, not to mention all the planets are direct. Okay. And Mercury's going to leave post-retrograde shadow soon. Right. And when also too, maybe that's a separate note, but when all planets are direct, that's also all signs go, moving forward, nothing stopping us, progress. Okay. Multiple indicators here, fast progress and change in multiple different ways, internal and external, out of things from the past into different things, and having it feel more grounded and all of that. This can also bring more excitement with the Jupiter too. This can also bring an intuitive knowing with them both being water signs, right? More of that. Okay, but what might be some of the issues here? Well, Mercury doesn't like to be in the sign of Pisces. Now, I'm a little more optimistic on that because Mercury did go retrograde in this spot. So it's kind of already been working this out. But it still doesn't like to be there. And why is that? Well, Mercury is about our finite mind, things that are more conscious and things that make logical sense, right? And Pisces and the water signs connecting with Cancer are not so much about logical sense. They're about kind of faith over logic or your intuition over what your logical mind can tell you. So even though I think there is a lot of things after this full moon, they're going to start to pick up the pace, fast change, easy change with the help of people, with the support of others to get out of things from the past and into new things. Here, there's something about it that maybe doesn't make logical sense or that's overwhelming to the finite mind, to the logical mind, especially because Mercury doesn't really care for Jupiter too much either. So there could be this sense of like things are happening very quickly. They're starting to happen very fast, but like, why now? Why weren't they before? It doesn't make sense, like why all of this stuff would start happening, or where things are happening so fast that our logical mind can't process it, right? It's just, there's so much going on, I can't process it. So it can also create that situation too, hard intellectually processing your situation as well. That can also feel overwhelming. Jupiter, big in this alignment with Mercury, feel overwhelming not only our emotions, and which I think are excitable, a lot of exciting emotions, but also overwhelming our mind. A lot of good things going on, but hard to compute and figure out what is happening here too. That's going on. So that's another piece of the puzzle. There was a little bit of a slow energy, stuck energy when it comes to transitioning out of one thing and into another. Instead of fighting against it, we lean into it. We use it to think things through, to regain our balance, to talk to people, and to get insights about that and who can help us. And it freaking works to get us the insights that we need about how to make this transition, which finally then allows it to happen fast, quick, easy, big changes in our lives with the help of others, lots of good luck in order to do it. That then brings big feelings, big emotions, and a lot of things going on in our life that are big, or just a few things going on that feel big, that then makes our emotions a little hard to control because we're feeling so much, and starts to overwhelm our logical mind because there's so much going on. So there's that. Mercury too is also about our habits and routines. So it can also make it hard for us to organize as well, to organize because so much is going on and we're feeling so much, and to kind of get it into more of a routine here too. That then leads me now to the next alignments I'm going to mention here. We're going to go to Venus. I'm going to go here, Venus and Taurus making a square over to Pluto in Aquarius, right at the time of this full moon as well. Okay, now this is also a bit of maybe I'll say it's also a mixed bag. In some ways it's good because we've got Venus and Taurus, its home sign, where it likes to be, and it's out of Aries, a sign it did not like to be in. So in some ways that's very, very good, indicating there's something good. It's going to function much better, Venus, which is important because it is the ruler of the full moon. But even though it's in a good spot, it's making a square to Pluto and Aquarius. Square is a hard aspect. Pluto too can be very difficult, being, it's something that's very far away from here, from where we live. So a bit of a good and a bad here. What is that? Well, let's start with the good with Venus. Venus is a lot about receiving and allowing things to happen more easily, right? Especially with it correlating to Libra, right? Venus correlates to both Taurus and Libra is where the full moon is. So this is us in that state of like, I'm going to be at ease while these things happen. And I'm going to receive the help from other people and let other people help me. And I'm going to go more with the flow and stop trying to fight against it, right? This is a very good energy to help us be more at ease and receive things that's going on there, and to try to do it in a more stable and secure way. Taurus does like that here. Excuse me. But even though that's the case, we've got it making a square over to Pluto in the sign of Aquarius, which is a bit of a challenge. Pluto is about change, permanent change, and Aquarius, remember, is about those unexpected things that we've already talked about since the moon is trying that. Unexpected change, unexpected things that are going on to transition out of that. Pluto too can also bring deep emotions as well that are happening with a lot going on, especially with other people, because Aquarius can be all of that. And with the square to Venus and Taurus, we could feel like we don't know how to maintain a sense of calm and ease. Venus amidst great change. Pluto amidst great change is coming up unexpectedly. That feels overwhelming. That feels like a lot. That feels chaotic. We may not know how to maintain that calm approach. And we may feel like we are getting out of hand, or we might lose ourselves to it, or we're losing control, of everything. That can be very hard here and bring up some fears, right? Pluto has a lot to do with fears and insecurities. So it can bring up some of that fear that like it's going to run us over, that all these changes are too much. We can't handle it. It's going to get the best of us. It's going to, totally change our sense of self with the Taurus there too. That can also be a little bit hard that is going on, because I do think another thought, right? Pluto is about change. Venus is about our sense of self, especially in Taurus. I think what is going on is going to change so much about our lives, especially how we see ourselves, and I think there's some of that worry there too, of like, there's so much going on. I don't know if I can stay calm and grounded and at ease throughout all of this change and chaos. And it's changing so much about myself and my life that I feel like maybe I don't know who I am anymore. Maybe there's that kind of sense too, right? To kind of take it in another way, I don't know who I am anymore. And I feel like I'm losing myself, or who I was in the process, like a death, Pluto that has to do with death, right? A death of our sense of self, of who we used to be. That can also bring some triggers there that's going on. So that thing about feeling overwhelmed, right there, it's kind of, there's a lot devolving there into that. Do you see? So to bring that together before I'm going to give you the advice next. So to bring that together, what is going on at this full moon in Libra is that we're still feeling a little stuck and slow and heavy when it comes to ending an old chapter in life that we do not like and getting into a new, different, and better one. Really, I think because we're trying to be too serious and traditional about the whole thing instead of just go with the flow and try new stuff. That's going on. That's been very hard. And because we're feeling a little slow and stuck, I think we realize like we just have to go with the slow energy instead of fight against it. And I think the more that we go with the slow energy and we use it as an opportunity to kind of calm ourselves and to think things through and to talk things through with relationships and figure out how relationships can help us, that then helps. That then gives us a massive insight that we need to get things done, to actually make this change out of the past and into the new more quickly, more easily than we have in a long time, with a lot of unexpected good luck and help and support, especially from other people in order to do it. That I think is very good, but then begins to feel overwhelming because either there's a lot going on that's just drinking from the fire hose, or there's a little going on, but it just feels like a lot that then makes us our emotions get out of sorts, and also makes it hard for our logical mind to comprehend what's going on because there's so much going on, or it's so big. It makes it hard for us to organize. That then makes us feel very chaotic and unsure how we can stay calm and at ease, which is what we just got, how we can stay calm and at ease in the midst of this, making us uncertain how we can stay calm and at ease in the midst of great change, especially when it's totally changing everything about our lives and ourselves and who we are, and maybe making us feel a little afraid and a little worried about the whole thing, or just overwhelmed. That's going on. That I should note, I should have said this before, can also bring anxiety and nervousness, maybe make us want to go back into controlling things as well. That can be hard. Because that's going on now, what is the advice? What I want to say? Well, I think what I want to say in terms of the advice, I actually think here that even though there is some fear that's going on, that we're actually going to resolve that fairly easily. I think we're going to resolve that fairly easily because even though Venus is squaring Pluto, Venus is at home in Taurus, so it's going to hold its ground, right? And that's what Taurus does. It's the bull. It's going to dig its feet in. It's going to hold its ground. So even though I have to say, even though there is this overwhelm and this chaotic feeling that may be going on, I think in the end, we're going to land on our feet. I think in the end, we're going to figure out how to be calm within the storm, right? And I mean that in the best way possible, like a good storm. We're going to figure out how to be calm within the storm, or how to have our feet planted amidst a lot of things going on around us. I think we're eventually going to figure it out. you know, and find our way into this calm place and get to maybe some of the courage to do it as well, especially with, a new moon in Aries coming up too, right? And Aries is about courage and bravery there, right? And Mars is going to enter it soon in a bit. So I think that we're going to find it, even if it takes us some time after this full moon, right? And until the next one to do it naturally. But if I had to give you some advice to help you out with that, I think the advice that I'm going to give you is going to be with back to this Jupiter in Cancer, because the Jupiter in Cancer forms a T-square between this full moon, right? You've got the moon here, and then you've got them both squaring Jupiter. It's the focal point. And sometimes the planet that's being squared like this and a T-square gets neglected, or we don't do as much because the opposition kind of starts to take over here. So we need to focus more on this. I always think of a T-square as like the point of an arrow pointing towards the apex of it. And in this case, it's Jupiter in Cancer. And what is that about? I mean, Jupiter is about big things going on and is about excitement going on, is about the good luck. It's like more in that direction. The advice is not to constrict, is not to hold back. It's not to say, oh, this is just too much for me. This is just too much for me. Whatever's going on, or it feels so much I can't handle it. I got to make it smaller. I got to control it. No, the advice is you got to make it bigger, right? Or let it be big. Let it be bigger and bigger and bigger, and like go with the excitement of it and the passion of it and the feeling of it. As well, because, right, the more you try to control it, you're going to stop the good things from happening, and it's going to be harder, right? And the more you say, I don't know, I need to think, and I need this, and no, go with the events, the chaos, the things that are happening, go with it and allow it to happen. Here, especially because Jupiter's got like more of a happy-go-lucky kind of vibe, and like to have fun with the adventure and have fun with the process. Not only that, but Jupiter as well is also about faith, having faith that everything will work out, and that eventually once all is said and done, then you'll be able to organize it, or then you'll be able to bring it under control too. So I think that that's another piece of advice is like, don't try to stop these things from happening fast. Let them happen fast. Let them happen easily. More and more and more, and just have faith and trust that whenever it slows down, it'll be exactly where it needs to be, and you'll be able to catch your breath in. Not only that, but Cancer is a lot about our emotions and a lot about nurturing ourselves as well. I think that that's also an important thing to do. If you're feeling like things are getting crazy and getting out of control, again, it's not stop it. It's not try to I didn't say logically analyze it. No, you got to go with it. You got to enjoy it. You're just going to have faith that even if you don't understand it, it's going to work out. And also too, maybe take some time to nurture your emotions too, through the process, whatever that is for you. If that's, making sure that you are eating well, or are taking a lot of warm showers, or getting your rest, like whatever that is, nurture yourself through that process, and tend to your emotions, because the more that you nurture yourself, the more you're going to feel, don't want to say worthy, where there's, with the Venus and Taurus, the more you're going to feel worthy of like these good things happening, and stop trying to push them away. So I think that there's a part of that. And maybe also safety. Cancer's a lot about safety. Just cultivate safe spaces, safe people, whatever it is, places for you to feel safe throughout this chaos, because you coming back to those safe places for yourself is also going to help you handle whatever's going on and not get so overwhelmed or maybe anxious about the whole thing too. Not only that, but maybe I will go back, because I was kind of briefly mentioning it as I was talking about Jupiter and Cancer, but maybe also the advice I'll give you is with Venus and Taurus. Taurus is about Venus, they're correlated because Venus is at home in Taurus, but Taurus is a lot about allowing things and receiving things, which to me is more indicated because Venus is at home there. So another piece of advice, you have to allow it to happen, right? Big theme. Stop saying no. Stop pushing things away. Stop saying, no, well, I have to think about it and maybe another time and this is not it. No. Receive. You have to receive the help. If someone's offering to help you, receive it. If there's an opportunity that you wouldn't have considered before that's now coming, receive it. You have to allow it to happen and stop pushing these things away, even if they're non-conventional or non-traditional, which I think they might be with the Pluto and Aquarius involved. Okay, not only that, but Taurus is a lot about our own value and our own worth. So, another piece of advice too is to believe that you're worthy of good things happening. Because if you're not believing that you're worthy, right, and that kind of goes to Jupiter belief. But if you're not believing that you're worthy of good things to happen, then you might push some of this stuff away, right? And that's not what we want to do, right? We want to keep the good stuff here that's happening. So that's also part of the advice, right? And there is something about relationships. Remember, relationships can help us do something at this full moon. But if you're like, no, I don't want your help, I'm going to do it myself, or like, no, I don't want to bother you. I don't want to bother you. Like, then you might struggle here because other people can help you. And you need to believe that it can help you and that you're worthy of being helped, um, and to receive that, because I think that's also going to make things much easier for you as well. Okay. And I think that's it. I think that's all I'm going to say. Because that's it, I'm now just going to repeat that one last time without the jargon. So let me do that now. What I think is going on at this full moon in the sign of Libra, especially at the beginning of it, is that we're feeling a little like stuck, slow, and restricted, especially when it comes to ending old things in our life that have been a challenge and stepping into new, different, and better things we've been trying to get to for a while. Really, I think because we're still being a little too traditional, strict, and serious about it and not going with the flow as much as we really need to be. That is a little frustrating and hard. But because we're feeling frustrated and like things aren't really working, we then realize we just need to lean into the slow energy instead of fight against it. And leaning into that slow energy then helps us to be more calm, more balanced, think more things through, get a different perspective, and really talk to relationships and talk to other people about what's going on to get their opinions. And this slow, calm energy, the thinking things through and the talking to people then brings major insights that then really help us to finally understand what needs to be done to more fully transition out of one thing into another thing and to make it happen much faster and more easily and more quickly than it was before, with more support from other people. Because I don't think we've had support from other people in a long time in order to make it happen suddenly and unexpectedly. And I think more good luck to make this transition in the way that we need and to see it more publicly manifest and more tangibly in our lives. And that's wonderful. But even though that's wonderful, because this change is happening so kind of easily and so quickly in a way that maybe it hasn't in a while, I think we then start to get very excited by what's happening and and not only very excited, but also very overwhelmed emotionally because so much is going on, but also very overwhelmed mentally because it doesn't make logical sense that things would be happening in this way. And maybe feel a little out of control, a little disorganized as well. That can then make us feel rather chaotic and not sure how to remain calm and stay in this balanced place, an easy place amidst so much going on, or a little bit going on that feels so big that can then throw us back into some anxiety and nervousness and maybe a desire to want to control the situation, even though I think we're not going to stay there for long. We're going to resist that and ultimately go with what's happening in the way that we need. Okay. And if you're struggling at this full moon, even though I think you're going to figure it out on your own intuitively, I'll give you some advice. And the advice on how to handle this full moon is to not stop once things get rolling, to not try to stop these events that are occurring, to not try to push them away, but instead to allow them to happen, to receive them, to go more with whatever craziness is going on in whatever way, right? To stop trying to organize it, to have faith it's going to come together, to believe you're worthy of receiving whatever is happening here in whatever way that it's coming to you. And to trusting and having faith that it will all come together. Because if you can go with it, right, instead of trying to stop it, I think we're finally going to do it. We're finally going to make this transition once and for all to harvest, right? The harvest is ready to finally do this thing, to make this transition out of one thing and into another once and for all, to have it actually work. Okay, and that's it. Because that's it, what I like to do now at this part in the video is just say a few more things about this energy and my own words about what's going on. Right. I mean, I think that this full moon in Libra, I guess to put it simply, is finally when it's going to complete, right? We've been in a long journey, especially since 2020, of trying to change our lives out of one thing and into another thing. It's been very hard. It's been very long. And this full moon in Libra to me is like that finally happening. And not only finally happening, like finally finishing, because I've been talking the past few months, at least since Aquarius season, like February, and maybe even a little bit in last October, if you watched my horoscope then, about this happening. Like it's happening. We're finally making that transition out of one thing and into another, right? That's kind of been going on for the past few months. But to me, this full moon in Libra marks the ending of that process of like, we've been trying to transition out of one thing and into another for at least 5 years. It started to get going within the past few months. And this full moon in Libra is the finishing of that and saying like, okay, after this full moon in Libra, the next 2 or 3 weeks, it'll be done. The transition out of the thing and into the new thing will be done, and you'll finally be in the new thing that you need, and the reason why, I think that is because, full moons do indicate endings of things. This is the last full moon before the next new moon, which is in Aries, right? And that's important to me because Aries is the beginning of the astrological year. And even though technically the astrological year has already started because the sun has already entered Aries, I personally like to wait until the first new moon of the astrological year, right? To me, the astrological new year has not officially started until we get that first new moon in Aries in that sign. The door is open before then, but until that new moon in Aries, it hasn't fully hit home yet. So, right, and Aries is the first sign of the zodiac. So that's another reason full moons are about endings. And this is the last full moon before the first new moon of the astrological year, which is going to start that whole 12-month cycle after that. Not only that, but again, Libra is about the harvest. Okay. Since Libra starts the last half of the zodiac, okay, the last 6 signs of the zodiac, it also starts at the ending, the last of something, and of finally starting to see the results of something before. So that's a big part of it. And we have all planets direct for another month or so, right? Which is like, all planets usually do go direct every year, but it doesn't really last for that long, So two can be somewhat of a rare thing as well, really helping us make this transition out of one thing and into another to get to where we need to go. So that's really what the main thing here is with this full moon in Libra. That to me is the main takeaway. It's not that, we're in the middle of a transition from out of the one thing and into the new thing. No, we've been talking about that for freaking years. Okay, that's not novel. That's not new to this full moon. No, the thing that's novel and unique to this full moon is that it's finally finishing. This transition for freaking years we've been trying to do to get out of one thing and into it's finally ending. It's finally finishing. We're finally ending that transition so that by the time we get to the new moon in Aries and onwards, we're going to be in a new experience and we're going to stop messing with this old stuff. Not only is that the takeaway from the full moon in Libra, but I think the takeaway too is that it's going to start to happen more quickly and more easily now. Again, with all planets direct, right? All planets direct means forward movement, more easy without the blockages of retrogrades and all this backward stuff going on. Right? Especially if you want to consider full moons about endings, Libra, slow, Venus ruled, got to deliberate, ending a slow time so that things are happening faster and things are happening easier now as well. So I think that that's the other key part about the full moon in Libra. We're ending finally this transition out of one thing and into another so that we can finally make the freaking transition. We can finally make it and be in the new experience, and it's happening more quickly and easily now in order to facilitate that, in order to get that going, where that slow, stagnant, frustrating energy of the past is wearing off. Okay. I think that to me is it. Now, how is the slow, stagnant energy of the past wearing off? I'll give you a few different thoughts. I think part of it is with the calm and the ease, right? That's another theme with Libra, right? Libra being Venus ruled is about calm and ease. I think that for the past few years, probably, but especially a few weeks, I think we've been kind of pushing and forcing things, or we've been very anxious and nervous, or we've been very afraid about what we're leaving behind and what we're moving into. And when you're afraid and when you're impatient, when you're anxious and nervous, you don't necessarily act right. You don't think right, that's been going on. So I think we've got more calm and more peace now that we're starting to get used to. Right? That's going on, especially from this process just taking so long. There comes a time when you're like, oh, this process has been so long. It's like everything good and bad imaginable has happened under the sun. Like, I might as well just be calm now instead of letting every little thing freak me out. So I think what's making this fast and easier now is more of a calm approach without getting stressed about every little thing and just kind of taking it as it comes. I think that's super important, which is a thing we've been cultivating, at least for the past year or so while the North Node has been in Pisces. Okay. Not only I think is that helping us, but I think too, with Saturn and Aries, we're letting go of tradition. I think that's been a hard journey too, letting go of the old way we used to do things, or a serious and responsible way. And, right. Cause Saturn doesn't like to be in Aries, because Aries is not about tradition. We got to remove the traditions. So I think another thing that's helping us to speed up the pace is like, we're starting to let go of the traditional way of doing things and to just go more with the flow, right? And we're letting go of the serious way of doing things. Not only that, but I think another thing that's helping us too is with the Jupiter's a lot about wisdom and understanding, and Jupiter's about wisdom and understanding from experience. Wisdom and understanding doesn't just fall on top of you like sometimes we think it does with Jupiter. Good luck doesn't just happen. Good luck happens because we have experienced something and we've learned what works and what doesn't. So I think we've also got a lot of wisdom now about what we do want to create and how we want to create it. And that's what's going on too, which I think is helping. Yeah, and some of that non-traditional approach with the moon trining Pluto in Aquarius, to go back to that. And another thing that I think is really helping this time around, and this is also unique to this full moon in Libra, is relationships. Relationships are helping. And I don't think we've had that before, right? That the insight we've been getting, the wisdom we've been getting before, the non-traditional approach we've been coming around to before, to kind of get some of that. This calm approach, we've been working on this stuff, I think in some way, shape, or form, sometimes more in your face than others. But what really hasn't come together as much has been the relationships. And I think what we're also getting at this full moon that's helping us a lot is relationships, people really working together to kind of help you out, and to kind of help you get to where you need to be. And sometimes, you just need a help from somebody. You just need a hand from somebody is all you need in order to get things going as well. That I think is also coming together too. Relationships finally getting on board and understanding what we need, or if not really old relationships getting on board, they're just different people around really helping you out too. That's going to be key to the journey. Anything else that's been helping us? Sure, Venus and Taurus, this willingness to receive instead of pushing help away, right? Because if a relationship is going to help you, you have to receive the help and stop pushing it away. I think a willingness to receive and allow things to occur is also very important too. So I think that that's another thought there too, is like this full moon is not about the beginning of a transition out of one thing into another. It's not about the middle of a transition out of one thing into another. It's about the end. We're finishing a transition out of one thing and into another, and it finally happening more quickly and more easily and picking up speed because we know what to do, right? We've got the wisdom and understanding. We've got a non-traditional approach. We've got more calm and ease, and we finally have the help of relationships, and we're receiving that help and allowing it to occur, which is all coming together very positively. Okay. Yeah. Anything else? Now, how does it relate to the last horoscope that I gave you? Like, what one was that? Like 2 weeks ago, the new moon in Pisces. To be honest, I don't quite remember what I said for that. I do believe that new moon in Pisces was about us, right, trying to be more in flow, with things. So if some of you are remembering what I said at that last horoscope, where I'm like, we're trying to be more in flow and pick up speed, and then all of a sudden you get to the beginning of this horoscope and you're like, oh, but now you say we were still slow again, right? This is just for those of you who watch that, and it's like, yes, I do believe at that new moon in Pisces 2 weeks ago we were picking up speed, but it doesn't happen all at once. Just because you were gaining speed, it doesn't mean that we're going from 0 to 100 within an hour or within a day. Sometimes it's a crescendo, it's a buildup. And as things build up, you realize certain things need to be worked out or weren't worked out fully, or we need to focus on more. So even though I do believe that new moon in Pisces brought more of an easy flowy energy that was going to get things unstuck to move forward. It needed just, we needed just to work out some of those kinks. We needed to just work out some kinks to now lead us to this point where now things are starting to flow and things are starting to come together a lot easily. And we have the help of our friends in order to make it happen. Okay. So that's how I see those things as connected there. Okay. Anything else that I want to add? Okay. Now, after this goes on and things happen more easily and more quickly, then things can feel a little crazy and chaotic, that can be a little bit hard. Then they can feel a little crazy and chaotic because then we're feeling like our entire life is being turned upside down, right? Because when we actually make the transition out of one thing and into another, when we actually make that transition, then we're feeling like, oh shoot, now our life is turned upside down because we're not who we were and we're not who we used to be. And now it's finally happened. And when there's so much going on that's so fast and maybe so easy, that can also feel overwhelming. So remember, there's also some of that that's coming up as well. That can also be a bit hard, there too, throughout the process. After it happens, right? Because we did talk about that. But remember, that to me is a good problem to have. What problem would you rather have? Things happening just slow and not happening at all and you feeling stuck and that bringing on negative emotions? Or would you rather have a lot of things moving and finally changing and then it just being a lot and you just feeling overwhelmed from all the, the stuff going on, right? And the good emotions. What challenge would you rather have? I would probably rather have things shifting in positive ways and me mentally and emotionally struggling to keep up with the good things that are going on. So I think that there are worse problems to have than that. But I think I just want to mention that is a thing. That once we finally finish this once we finally realize how to finish this transition out of one thing and into another, it's going to start to speed up a lot because we got the wisdom, we got the help of our friends, we got a non-traditional approach, we're more open to receive all of that. And that's going to have things moving very quickly, which is then going to overwhelm us emotionally and going to make it hard for our mind to wrap around because it's all happening so quickly when it was, maybe it wasn't before. That is going to, and feel disorganized, right? And chaotic. That's going to throw us for a loop, but that's not really that bad of a problem to have compared to others. Okay. And maybe I need to linger on that, right? The 3 problems after things start happening fast and easy is going to be emotions are going to be overwhelmed, big feelings hard to contain. It's going to be our mind not knowing how to logically wrap our mind around what's going on because maybe it doesn't make logical sense or doesn't comprehend yet to our logical mind what's going on. And it's going to be organization. It's going to feel a bit disorganized with everything, because sometimes that's what happens when a lot of things go on fast. Okay. And again, what's the way to resolve that? Well, I think you're going to, I just feel like you're going to figure it out on your own, but, at some, as the energy goes on more naturally and instinctually, but the way to handle this energy is not to push it away. It's to stay in that receptive place, to stay in that receptive, allowing place of like craziness is going on. It feels overwhelming, but I'm going to allow it to occur and I'm going to receive it. And to have that, right, with the Venus and Taurus, because Venus is about receiving and allowing, especially with the relationships, with the moon in Libra, that help from relationships, to trust with the Jupiter about faith and have faith it'll work out, to believe in it, to let things get bigger, Jupiter, to let it just snowball. And then also as well, to nurture yourself, Cancer, your emotions throughout the process so that you feel safe enough to let it expand instead of constrict it and instead of hold it back. That's going on. Okay. That's happening here. Okay. And I think that's all I'll say there. Now, do I want to give like some examples of things, or do I want to give any more advice, because as I was saying that I do feel like a lot of this stuff is going to happen more naturally and easily. Okay. And I feel like all the way around, but if some of you, right, because the hardest part of this full moon is really the energy leading into it, is really like the few days to a week before it, is like that stuck energy of what's going on there. So if you're having a problem with that, because I feel like in this horoscope, I focused mostly on the advice for the end of the energy when things get overwhelming. But what if you're having problems at the beginning of the full moon when you're feeling this stuck, restricted energy, like nothing's budging? Well, if that's you, okay, I think I need to focus more on that. Then the advice there is you non-traditional. If you're stuck and you're like, I'm trying to transition out of one thing into another thing and it's still not working, do something non-traditional, do something weird, something unique, something out of the ordinary in your situation, because that might be what it needs. The reason why your situation may be stuck is because you're trying to look for the traditional thing. Try something different. Okay. Because again, right, Aquarius is trining the full moon in Libra. Try something different. Not only is that the advice, but if you're also struggling at the beginning of this energy and feeling stuck, the advice is also relationships. Talk to people. Talk to people. Ask them their advice, ask them their opinions, ask them what they think. If they know of anybody, what can be done? Talk to people. People can be very, very helpful, okay, at this time to help you figure things out, a variety of people, right? To get answers to questions that you need and make connections that maybe you wouldn't have connected otherwise. Talk to people to get their advice and get their feedback and connect. Not only that, but another thought too, that can help as well, is calm down. Okay, that's a very important with the Venus and Taurus and the Libra too, is calm down. It's very hard to get clarity and get answers and insights when you're nervous, when your cortisol's high, when you're anxious, right? Because then we're not thinking clearly, and then we're not allowing what needs to happen, and we're forcing what we want to happen on it instead of what needs to happen in this situation. So it's huge there of getting calm too. Another thing, if you're kind of stuck in the early phases as well, is the receiving is key too. If someone is going to offer you help, right? Because remember, I said, you need to connect with people here, and there needs to be an innovative idea, a unique idea that you haven't tried before. Another important part is receiving it. Sometimes we underestimate it because receiving feels like nothing, but that's also going to be key too. If you get a unique insight, and if someone offers you help, don't push it away. There's a need to receive and allow it to happen as well, because that also is going to change everything too about your situation, and maybe to give the examples there. I think that's really where I need to give the examples of what's going on, of how this full moon can kind of play out, is that let's say that some of you are trying to find a new job, right? And you've been really stuck trying to find a new job for a very, very long time and you just can't find one. Well, for some of you, it may be because you're looking for a job that's too traditional, because you think that that's what you should do, or that's the only thing you're skilled at. So you're doing all the traditional means, or you're looking for it in a traditional way, or maybe you're trying to do it all yourself. So that's why it's not working at this full moon in Libra. Try applying for a different job, a job you just don't think you're going to get, a job you don't think they're going to call you back because you think it's weird or you're not skilled for it. Try something else, or try looking for a job in a weird way. Instead of looking for it on the usual sites or whatever, try something else. And if you're looking for a job, try talking to people, calling them up on the phone or talking to friends and working your networks, doing that way. That's going to work more than trying to do it yourself and looking at the same jobs you've always looked at, something very different, right? Or trying to make money in a very different way than what you've done. Okay. So I think that that's going to be very key there. If this is a home situation, right? And you've been trying to move for a while and figure out your home situation. Well, then another thing too, maybe some of you are feeling stuck with the move of home or with renovating a home. And if that's you, what you need to do at this full moon in Libra is try something unique, a unique idea, a unique solution. If you can't move, or you can't move to the place you want, try moving to a unique place, a place you haven't thought of before, or rearranging your home in kind of a unique way, because maybe that'll bring in the energy that you need to kind of get in this different direction, right? Or maybe you need to talk to somebody. Maybe you need to talk to a realtor or a lender. Maybe you need to maybe there's just more people you need to talk to, because maybe they'll know the person who owns the house to get you the deal so that they'll sell it. There's a lot of things here that's going on non-traditional ways, and connecting with people to get their advice and have them connect you with others. Okay. If this is a health situation and you've got something going on with your health that you feel really stuck at, still haven't been able to work out, right? This is also a non-traditional approach too, right? Instead of trying the traditional things that maybe you've thought of, try something different, because even though the doctors may be recommending something that works for science, maybe your body is different, and your body needs a different thing, so try a little bit of a whatever that is, right? I'm not a doctor. I'm not qualified to give you advice, but is that a non-traditional treatment that's being recommended? Is it a non-traditional diet? Is it a non-traditional routine, right? Like, try something else along those lines, and then communicate with people, because the more people you communicate who are unique, right? Who have different ideas. That's the thing. Aquarius is a lot about groups of people, and Aquarius is also about unique ideas, because when you get groups of people, when you talk to a lot of people, they're not going to have the same ideas. One person's idea is going to be different from the next, going to be different from the next, going to be different from the next. They're going to come up with something that's going to make you think about something in a weird way. So if you're having a health issue, you need to talk to different doctors or just different people in your life and see where they can connect you and what ideas that they have, because that also can get you to where you need to go to speed things up and have them moving quickly, right? If this is a relationship issue, well, there's a lot of good luck to work some of these out here. I will say, if this is a relationship issue and you're feeling stuck, unable to get out of a divorce, or unable to work something out with the partner, well, you got a lot of luck to do it here. And what you might need to do in order to work that out at this full moon is, come up with a unique idea, a unique situation, whatever that is, a unique living situation, a unique working situation, something kind of crazy, something like along those lines, and then talk to the person, to kind of get feedback and figure out what they want to do, right? It's like that is what needs to happen, and actually listen. Right, with the Libra there, actually listen and stop pushing and forcing, and actually listen to what is going on and come up with these unique solutions, because that may then help things to finally click into place that it is that you need there, because I think that something can come together. Okay. And then of course there's many other examples that you can take from this, and this can play out in tons of different ways, but those are just a few ideas. Another thing too that I want to say as well, just another thought, is like, non-traditional is not a demotion. I think sometimes, especially after Pluto was in Capricorn for so long, over the course of the past, 10 or so, 15 years, I think sometimes we think when we're doing things in a non-traditional way that we're demoted, or we're opting out, or it's not going to work. And we got to stop that, right? It's like when Pluto's in Aquarius now, we're in the age of Aquarius. Things are not what they used to. The world is not what it used to be. It is not what it used to be, and we have to adapt, and we have to start doing things differently. You know what I mean? And so doing things in a non-traditional way doesn't mean that you lost, or you're not good as someone else, or whatever. It just means you're doing what needs to be done, right? And you're adapting, and it just is what it is, right? It doesn't have to have a value to it. It just is what it is. And to not, if that's some of you, to not see the non-traditional path as you being a failure, because you're not. And I'm thinking some people may think that with the Venus in Taurus, which is about confidence, square Pluto in Aquarius, of thinking like, if I'm doing the non-traditional thing, then maybe I don't have value, or maybe I failed somewhere, and it's like, stop thinking that. Because this is not about this time is not about doing things in traditional ways, especially with Pluto and Aquarius. And the more you're doing things in traditional ways, I think the more challenges you're going to have, because these institutions, maybe to put it in a broader perspective, these traditional institutions are going to fail, whether it happened already, whether it happens now, or whether it happens in 2027, in which there's a big indicator it's going to happen. These traditional institutions are going to fail, which means governments, which means corporations, which means these traditional leaders. And if you're hitching your ride with a traditional job, at one point there's going to be a problem there. At one point, that's also going to fall apart or get fired or something else, and you're going to have to go this non-traditional route anyways. So I think that's my other thought too, is like, the non-traditional may not feel like we want it to feel right now, or look like, whatever, but it's going to be the better route in the end. That's really going to get the better results, and to kind of embrace the non-traditional part of it, okay. something very different that's going on, and allow the help to occur. Okay, and I think that's it. Because that's it, I'm going to look at your inside degrees and pull your card. So let me do that. Let me get it on the screen. All right, the inside degrees. These were not written by me. They were written by someone else named Elias Lonsdale, who channeled the meanings of each of the degree from spirit. But I like to look at these to just get more information about what might be going on. So we're going to do that. The full moon in Libra is at 12 degrees, but the planets are in motion. So I believe the degree of before or after can all be relevant and can tell a story too, if you look at all of them. So we're going to do that. 11 degree Libra, I have it on the screen. It says destiny openings, carte blanche to enter upon fresh directions, a child of destiny offered by spirit, protection and guidance, encouragement and empowerment. You are the exception to the rule, the special exemption for future purposes extracted from the old regular patterns and given the chance to follow the inward instincts and sensibility completely. Now, if that sounds positive to me. If it doesn't sound positive to you, I don't know what will. But this to me sounds like there's something, your destiny opening, something encouraging you on your path towards your destiny, towards your fate, towards carte blanche. Oh, what a white page, a totally fresh start, a fresh direction. Look, and you have the protection, the guidance, the encouragement, the empowerment in order to do it, in order to make it happen. Okay. And I think that's a lot of how I've interpreted this full moon. There's something about it I feel that's meant to be empowering, of like putting old cycles to bed and old cycles to rest, and a lot of support and help to do it, to make all of this happen and to make you feel special, to make you feel like there's something special going on to help you out. I don't think we felt like we've had something special to help us out in a while. And I think there is something special here, right? And that's the Libra. The Libra doesn't want to do, the Libra wants to make everyone feel included, right? So it's like something about the full moon in Libra that's like, I want to make you feel like you're not alone anymore to like help you do it, and help you make this transition. Okay. Let's read on. It says a distinctive quality of being marked out for destiny acceleration. What is acceleration? Moving fast. Fast, destiny coming at you fast, destiny acceleration beyond what is reasonable or set up. The start of something big, granted permission to make mistakes, make a fool of yourself, and still come up as the one everybody knows can and will do astounding things, just because down the road somebody is calling you onwards who cannot be refused. So even this degree is saying, sure, maybe you will make mistakes, or maybe you will temporarily reject help, or maybe things will start to get overwhelming and you'll shut it down and still good things happening anyways. And I think I mentioned that for, another new moon we had, or moon we had a month 2 weeks ago. Was it the last one, the week before? But we're still feeling it. There's still this energy. There's still this support of like, you can't really mess this up. That no matter what you do, destiny is going to bring you to the path that you now need to be at in order to get set up for kind of a new experience. Okay. Then we're going to go on. We're going to read 12 degrees Libra, which is the actual degree of the full moon itself. So let's do that. It says, wishful thinking, hoping for the best, looking toward a new start, naive and gullible. You are suspended, quiet, receptive, and lacking in discernment, desiring with authentic feeling to bring a resonant impulse to bear, yet hobbled by blind fervor and tunnel vision. This to me, I think, feels more like the energy towards the middle of it, right? Because remember I said there's something about, or the end, because remember I said there's something about the middle to the end of the full moon where it's just like overwhelmed, like so much passion, so much emotion, everything feels chaotic. That's where I feel like this is leaning towards the Libra 12. There, right? It says the desiring with authentic feeling to bring a resonant impulse, right? Blind fervor, tunnel vision, right? I think there's a lot of that. Prone to easy ways out and ideological positions, you are oddly poised between sheer reflective inwardness and exaggerated attempts to come out with ways to get on with the shared reality. A bit confused and at a loss, but charming, endearing, appealing, well-intentioned, and idealistic in ways, half delusional and half genuinely restorative. So I think that this to me also indicates that too, because remember I also said not only are our emotions so much by what is quickly changing, but then our mind also has problems too, which can make us mentally confused, although inwardly clear. And I think that these 2 degrees together, the inside degrees, really speaks to that, to a lot of what I've said in this video is that there is something good happening, a lot of support to make things happen fast and easily to get you on the destiny on where you need to go, but then the emotions in the mind kind of getting crazy a little bit after that. Okay. And maybe that is part of the advice too, another thought, right? Because I think part of the advice is there needs to be hoping for the best. Sometimes, being a little naive about something can kind of work in your favor, and I think we are kind of naive. Like we're trying to start new things, right? When you're starting new things, you don't really know what you're doing. So maybe there's some of the advice there of like, I don't necessarily see some of these things that this degree maybe is seeming as negative as being negative. Like, I think we need to hope for the best. I think we need to look to a new start. I think sometimes when you're starting something new, you are naive, and that's not necessarily a horrible thing. I think that we do need to be excited. I think we do need to search for easier solutions. I think things are way easier than they were making them out to be. I think there is something very easy here. So this could even offer some advice. Then we'll get to the last degree, Libra 13. When you are personally ill, disattuned, all broken up, you can find a kind of healing and transformation by exposing yourself to shared experiences that give you a boost and let you release what has gotten you to this point. Okay. You will find others in similar places to your own. Rituals and styles of change, of opening, of becoming somebody new can become a way of life in themselves, being thrust into collective cycles, taking on collective karmas, immersing yourself in what is going on with everybody. So there is more of a relational feel to this of like, seeking out relationships. There is a kind of healing and transformation that comes through this degree. Okay. Feeling it all, sensing what it is like to be human, to be wounded, to be searching, alive to the multiple chemistries. Along an open-ended pathway, you also tend to loop back to grow attached to the way it seems and to be naive to what you're really doing after it all. Experiences and processes must be springboards into really becoming free, and perhaps also by rooting into a place where love is born, out of whose source you can give to abundance. Okay, so I think there's also a lot of this as well, that like once these kind of changes are made, or are starting to be made, like a little bit of a weird feeling, like a scary feeling about it. And I think we did talk about that a little bit with Venus square Pluto. So I think there's also a sense of that as well, that this degree is bringing up of like, after we feel kind of overwhelmed because so much is going on and a little confused because it's hard to make logical sense of it, then we may feel, I got to stop it, or, anxious and nervous, or we got to go back to our old ways. That could come up, even though I don't think they're going to get us down permanently. There could be a little bit of that that may come up here. And there might be a need to work through that emotionally, to work through these emotions that are going to come. Another thought that makes me think of too is that the next new moon is going to be in Aries. And even though the next new moon is going to be in Aries, and even though I think we are going to be in the new experience, then that new moon, I believe, is going to be conjunct Chiron. Something is going to be conjunct Chiron as well. So even though I do think we're going to be in the new experience at that next new moon in Aries, there's something about it that's not going to feel comfortable. That's what we're going to talk about then, that I have mentioned in my webinar I did recently on Instagram a little bit, is like, once we get in the new life, that's ideally supposed to be better, it may not feel as good as it really is at the beginning. And it may not feel as good as it really is at the beginning because it's just so different. And sometimes when you're doing something that's different, even if it's better, it doesn't feel as good because you're not used to it. It's not familiar. It doesn't fit the same way. So this can also be hinting to some of that as well, that even when we do make these positive changes, that it just could feel a little not like ourselves. That's going to take some time for us to kind of grow into. That could be coming up. Okay. Anything else that I want to say? I'm going to now move over to pulling your card. Yeah, I mean, in terms of the collective, right? Like, how could this play out? I tend to focus on the individual because the collective is made up of individuals. So if we're doing these things, then eventually the collective will change, although it's going to take time, right? Because the collective is made up of a bunch of individuals. So we need enough of individuals to do something in order for the collective to do it, and the collective is usually slower than the individual. So as many individuals as we can right now, that are that are on the path, right, are going to make the change out of one thing and into another thing that I do think is more non-traditional and more aligned with their heart. They're going to make that change and that transition. And then once enough people do, another year, I think the end of 2027, then we're going to start to see big structural changes in our institutions that are going to occur. The governments, the businesses, the world order, it's like all of that. So there's some people that I know watch these videos and are like, well, how can you say that the whole world is getting better when obviously it's not? Clearly, I mean, I watch the news. Clearly it's not. And I feel so bad for what's going on in the world, but the point is that the world is not going to get better on its own. These people in power in these institutions are not going to change on their own. We have to change, and then we have to make them change. We have to make them change, right? And so if you're just waiting, well, when's the world going to change? Well, you're going to be waiting for a very, very long time, because the world is not going to change on its own. We have to do it, and we have to get there first. So we're going to make changes in our own lives. And we're going to make changes in our own lives to do things more in alignment with our heart and more non-traditional, to move away from these institutions, right? We have to remove ourselves from them so that we can, see them from the outside and change them as well. So I also want you to note that too. I mean, I do feel very bad about what's going on in the world, But I think it's, and those things are going to be addressed. It's just we have to do it as individuals first, And I don't come up with this stuff, I feel like sometimes the astrology just makes me say things that I probably would never say, in person, but it's like, because I'm reading a chart here in order to figure that out. But okay, let's go ahead and let's pull your card. And the card is, we've got the Fool reversed, and then we've got the Hermit reversed at the bottom of the deck. Well, that's interesting. They're both major arcana cards, which does indicate that this is a big deal, this full moon, a big energy. Okay. That's happening at this time. Very significant, which we kind of started out talking about with the Saturn conjunct Neptune every 35, 36 years, making a conjunction. Not only that, but this does indicate a little bit of a stuck energy. Sometimes the Hermit can be about doing things too much alone, too much by yourself. Right? The Hermit. When you think of Hermit, it's like, I'm going to be a hermit by myself. And this is reversed. And this is a full moon in Libra about relationships. And there's something very good about relationships here that can happen. So that's a big message here, is that maybe part of the reason why, especially this, we're stuck, the Fool can indicate, especially reversed, not quite at that new beginning, because maybe we're trying to do everything alone or do too much by ourselves. And we need to be reaching out to other people and need to be out and about trying to figure stuff out. So I think that's a big message there. Not only that, but the Hermit sometimes can almost be about too much introspection, because I think we've done a lot of introspection over the course of the past 5 years. We've been trying to do a lot of things right now that we're doing now for many, many years. And I think we've thought about it from every which angle, that we could. And so I think that there's a need of, I don't know if I want to say too much into it, right? Because the Libra is going to bring some introspection, but I think maybe it's a balancing part. Maybe there comes a point where you know enough about what you need to do to change your situation. You just need to act on it and just trust, and believe in it more, what you're trying to do. So I think that that's another thought here. Stop trying to do everything alone and stop thinking you need more information, you need more wisdom. You don't need more information. You need more perspective. You just need the right perspective, and then you need to act on it, right? Because some of you may be in that situation of like, I don't know what I'm going to do. I haven't learned enough. And it's like we have learned enough. And how much can you know when you're starting something new you've never done before, So don't fall into that trap of, I need more facts, I need more information. Or at least if you do get into that, because there is something about talking to other people, balance that with testing things out and with trying things as well. Because what we don't want is to stay stuck inside. We want some of these things we're thinking about to come out, and to kind of manifest in the world as well. So seek out help from other people and act on some of your ideas and thoughts that you have, and share your thoughts with other people, right? And maybe that's more it, right? Because, sorry, I'm keep talking because I don't know if that thought was the correct one around like I do think we need to think more about some things for a little bit, but maybe it's the externalizing the thought. Stop keeping your thoughts to yourself. Sometimes talking to another person about the thought or making a post about a thought online on social media or something, sometimes getting the thought out moves it. It's like once you speak something aloud, then you're like, oh, okay, now I don't need to deliberate about it anymore because I've said it and now it feels real or now it's helping me. So there's something there. Seek out help from other people and get your thoughts out of your head. You got to get them out of your head so other people can hear them or so that you can hear them or so that they can actually do something in your experience, because we don't want to keep your ideas inside. We want the ideas to come out because I think we do have a lot of the right ideas. And I think we already have enough information that we need. Maybe the information needs a little bit of a perspective shift on it, a tweak, but you don't need a lot of ruminating on it, just a little bit of a shift there. So maybe that's what I'll say. You've got the right ideas. You just got to get them out of you and act on them or shift them ever so slightly, tweak it and not reinvent the whole wheel and ruminate forever on things. Okay. Another thought here too, the Fool, which is interesting, is reversed. The Fool does indicate new beginnings, but it's reversed. And so I'm going to indicate that as like not quite at the new beginning yet. But then this to me can also indicate almost there. We're almost there. We're almost there to turning it up right. We just have to, finish something before we will be there. Another thought about this too is that the Fool tends to be about like taking a leap. Taking a leap or taking a leap of faith or a risk there too. So maybe that's also a thought for some of you, especially if we're talking about the relationships and the ideas, right? A relationship may have an idea that may feel like a little bit of a leap of faith, or you may have an idea that you've been afraid to act on that now you kind of need to get out there and test it out, so there could also be another thing too of like not being afraid to take a risk, especially with that Jupiter energy going on as well, and try something a little different out of your comfort zone, because that may actually be the thing that you need to actually work to finish the old thing and get you into the new thing that's going on here too. So I think that's what I'm going to say there. Thank you so much for watching. I hope this was helpful for you. I hope you have a good full moon in Libra, and I'll talk to you on that next new moon, which will be 2 weeks from now in the sign of Aries. If you like this video, please like it on YouTube and share it with your friends. I'll talk to you later.